What up, Laker fans? D-Mac here. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. The Lakers have hired Darvin Ham to be their new head coach. We're going to break it all down. We're going to tell you what to expect with Ham as your head coach. But first, for all latest Lakers news and rumors all off season long, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And if you really want to support the channel, smash that like button. And as always, I want your takes down below in the comments section. What are your thoughts on the Lakers hiring of Darvin Ham? Do you think he's going to make a big difference next season? I want all your takes on Darvin Ham down below. And for all latest Lakers news, head over to alllakers.com. But what up, Laker fans? We got some breaking news a few days ago, and we're touching on it today. The Lakers have hired Darvin Ham to be their new head coach. And here with me to break it all down is my man, Mr. Eric Yulo. What up, Yulo? What is your initial reaction? Because look, we can take a victory lap on this one, okay? We were, like you said, the conductors of the Ham train, and all of a sudden everyone started to make him their guy. But one, we'll give you a lot of credit, take that victory lap. And two, just what was your initial reaction to the news of the Darvin Ham hiring?
I love it. I think it's a great move. I think this is the first time Lakers fans have been excited about a decision from this front office in a long, long time, probably since they decided to trade Rondo. I think that generally the consensus is among fans that they're excited that it's not a retread. They're excited that it's an assistant coach who seems to already have the respect of LeBron for now. But there's a ton of upside here, and I think everyone's really excited to get a new face in there, some guy who's not a Laker alumnus and a guy who's been an assistant coach for over a decade now.
Yeah, you mentioned LeBron James. He was excited about it. He tweeted out, "So damn excited. Congrats and welcome Coach D Ham." A lot of clapping emojis, hashtag Lake Show, a couple heart emojis. And to me, it tells me that this organization and LeBron James, that they're still in lockstep, that they think that bringing in Darvin Ham, that he could be a big difference maker. Now, I don't think he's a miracle worker. And I think that Laker fans should really just take a step back as far as their expectations for what he's capable of. Now, when you look at this roster and how it's constructed, we know the issues they have. And some of my big questions when it comes to Darvin Ham are, one, is he gonna make LeBron James any younger? Is he gonna make Anthony Davis any less injury prone? Is he gonna make Russell Westbrook that explosive athlete again? Is he gonna fix this roster? No, he's not gonna do any of those things, but I do think he can have a positive impact on this team. But do you think that there's a situation where, look, yes, you put this roster from last year and you give it to Darvin Ham, he's probably going to have the same results, right? He's going to struggle just like Frank Vogel did. Do you think that Laker fans might be a little too excited about what he could do with this team and this roster next season?
I don't. I mean, I really think the excitement's warranted. I'm 100% on the bandwagon, on the Ham train. You and I in the front seat of business class on that thing. I mean, it's just such a big departure from kind of the environment that Frank Vogel got hired in, right? Because they botched it with Tyrone Lue. Frank Vogel was their third choice. It was this kind of, okay, we're resigned to hiring Frank Vogel. And yes, he did win that 2020 championship that you and I argue about the value of from time to time. But no, I think the excitement's warranted for Ham just because of what he's done on Mike Budenholzer's staff. And also, people knock him for being an 8-year bench guy, but that also means he can relate to all the guys on the bench. So if he can get LeBron to buy in, and Anthony Davis is just going to kind of follow LeBron's lead. That's who Anthony Davis is, and that's what makes him a great compliment to LeBron. Then I think Ham could do a lot of great things with this roster. But you touch on the biggest question is, can he maximize what Russell Westbrook has left in the tank? And so that's kind of my question back to you is, do you buy that Darvin Ham is going to be able to get us back? We're never probably going to see peak Westbrook again, but can he get Westbrook to be a more efficient scorer, to turn the ball over a little less, and to kind of buy into what his vision is for this Lakers roster?
Well, I just don't think that Russell Westbrook has any choice at this point, because when you look at how far he's fallen, at where his career has slipped after last season, if he wants to continue to play in the NBA, he's going to have to embrace any role that Darvin Ham can give him. But to answer your question, I think that he's going to hold him accountable. I think Darvin Ham is a guy that commands respect of all of his players. He's universally respected across the league. And I think that you've seen Russell Westbrook, he kind of gravitates towards certain players, certain head coaches, guys that he respects. And I think Darvin Ham is a guy that could get in his ear and say, hey, the only chance we have to win here is you embracing a role we have for you. You're not the Russell Westbrook of 2017. If you want to contribute to this team, this is how you're going to do it, and kind of lay it out for him. And I think that that's what's so intriguing about Darvin Ham and why I'm excited about him as well is he's known to create these individual relationships with his players. He's able to find ways to motivate his players. And look, they tell you across the board that when it comes to player development, he is one of the best in all of the NBA. So I think that when it comes to Russell Westbrook embracing a role, I think Darvin Ham can have an impact when it comes to that. But on the same token, look, he's not going to help him get some inches on his vertical, right? He's not going to make him a more efficient three-point shooter. He is what he is. You can't teach an old dog like Russell Westbrook new tricks. But I do think that when it comes to substitution patterns and just finding a role for him, I do think that there are ways around the margins that you can make him a somewhat productive player. And I think that just look at the fact that when it comes to Russ, if they would trade him, they'd be trading him on the low, right? You don't want to sell low on him. It's almost the Daryl Morey approach, right? You stretch it out as long as you can and wait until a market develops. So I think that really the plan A is for Darvin Ham, what kind of roster are you going to be giving him? Because I think to me, yes, he's a great motivator. Yes, I think he's well respected. But at the end of the day, how much value can he bring to a roster that's so flawed, that doesn't have a lot of flexibility to improve? But just kind of getting back to just kind of my initial reaction, I agree with you. I like the fact that it was a semi out of the box hire. It wasn't that recycled retread. It wasn't the Mark Jackson type. Another thing I love, it's a 4-year contract. And I know that somewhere your boy Frank Vogel is punching air, right? Because he got that 3-year deal. He got that 1-year extension after a championship. And to me, the fact that they gave a first-time head coach a 4-year deal, it shows me that they're committed to him for the next couple seasons and in the post-LeBron era. But one area why I'm concerned, though, is the Lakers. They've made 2 first-time head coaching hires in the last 28 years. What was the last one? It was Luke Walton. And after Luke Walton was hired, everyone praised the move. It was a home run hire, and it didn't turn out like we all had expected. Now, what are your thoughts on the fact that he is a first-time head coach coaching in this pressure cooker of a market, and he's the guy that's supposed to be this miracle worker for this Lakers team?
And I'm not going to rule it out. I mean, I think you brought up a good point. I mean, the amount of injuries they had last year, Vogel probably was never going to be able to overcome that. But, I think some of the substitution patterns, some of the late game stuff, and kind of who he chose to call on in those situations, I think Ham's going to do a better job strategically. And a big reason he got this job is because of all the X's and O's in those interviews. But just to touch on the 4-year contract, the other really important thing, I mean, one that shows you the front office learned from lowballing Ty Lue, hopefully learn from just embarrassing the hell out of Frank Vogel and firing him over Twitter. And it sounds like they're letting Ham pick his own assistants, which is not what they let Tyrone Lue do, which is why he didn't take the job. So I think that's a very, very big deal because, yes, they did win a title when they handpicked Jason Kidd and they handpicked Lionel Hollins for Vogel's staff, and that was great. But that's going to turn a lot of coaches away. So I'm hoping, maybe I'm being overly optimistic here, the front office learned from their previous gaffes here, and instead of giving him a 3-year contract, they gave him a 4-year contract. Instead of picking his assistants, he's picking his own assistants. And I'm still holding out hope that they'll turn around and hire Terry Stotts as his top assistant if Stotts doesn't want the Charlotte job, because I think that would be a great fit. Have a veteran head coach, have a retread as your top assistant. You're gonna have to overpay a little bit, but hopefully the Lakers learn from lowballing Scott Brooks. And, hopefully you have a nice cohesive coaching unit there. Terry Stotts can kind of help him navigate things a little bit there as he gets his feet under him on the Lakers. But yeah, Ham's not gonna be able to turn it all around, but there's a lot of reasons to be positive about this hire.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot to be excited about, a lot to be enthusiastic about. But I mean, the task is very high. I mean, he's tasked with the challenge of trying to pry open this championship window that a lot of people think has been slammed shut. And also, you have a Western Conference that is going to be much improved next season. And then right now, like I said, those concerns from last season, they're back again. I mean, you have Anthony Davis, who has missed half of the games that he's played in the last 2 seasons. Like we talked about the aging LeBron James. But I think when it comes to Darvin Ham, one thing I really love is that he brings that toughness back. I think that he's going to bring a sense of effort. And call me old school. And I know it's all about schematics and X's and O's. I'm going to talk about your comment on the assistant coaching pool in just a second. But I do think last year you saw this team, they were checked out. They were checked out late in games. You saw they couldn't take a punch, and you saw the look in Frank Vogel's eyes. I mean, he had that deer in the headlights look. He looked like a dead man walking for much of the second half of the season. And I think Darvin Ham, I mean, he's a different type of cat. I mean, did you see him shatter that backboard against North Carolina in the NCAA tournament? This is a guy that is a G League guy. This is a guy that he defied odds to make it to the NBA. And I think that his grit and his toughness, I think it's going to rub off on this team. But getting back to your comments on the assistant coaching pool. Now, that was one of the big differences between Luke Walton and Frank Vogel, right? I mean, Luke Walton, he picked his assistants and he didn't do so well. And I think that that was more of a, developing the young core, a down to the studs rebuild. But the bottom line is he didn't get the job done. And then after that, the Lakers said, no, we're going to play a bigger role in our coaches picking their assistants. But my big question is, do you think that Jeanie Buss and this Lakers organization, do you think they're going to be willing to pay top dollar for assistants? Because you mentioned Terry Stotts, and if you bring in Terry Stotts as your offensive assistant and your top assistant head coach, he's probably going to want something close to head coaching money. Do you think they are going to allow for top dollar salaries for these assistant head coaches?
If they're serious about contending next year and they're serious about giving Darvin Ham every resource they can to have him, to make him successful, then they'll do it. If they're going to penny pinch and Jeannie's going to complain about how much money she paid for a losing team in an LA Times feature, then no, they're probably not. They're probably going to go the cheaper route. But there are so many reasons to put a Terry Stotts or a Kenny Atkinson in that top assistant role. I think you need to have that lieutenant in there that can help him work through some of those things he's going to encounter. Because like you said, I mean, this is starting out. If Darvin Ham was skiing, he should be on a green. He's on a double black diamond in a snowstorm. I mean, this is as difficult as it gets with Russell Westbrook, with an aging LeBron, with a Anthony Davis who's made out of glass. And then he's going to have to figure out, he's going to have to maximize another horde of veteran minimum players and one mid-level guy, maybe two, to try to get this team back into contention. So it's an incredibly difficult task. And just brace yourselves for in 3 weeks, into like when we're in December, the week before Christmas, when Laker fans are complaining about Darvin Ham if they're 500, because it's going to happen, because that's what Laker fans do.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, the beginning of the show is that if he had the same roster with the same injuries, his record would be very similar to Frank Vogel's last year. And I think that that's where I have pause when it comes to the excitement for next year. I'm thinking more big picture at this point when it comes to Darvin Ham, because next season, like you said, I mean, to me, this is a distraction at this point. I mean, you had a terrible regular season. You have the missing of the playoff. They missed the playoff seven they've missed the playoff 7 or last 9 seasons. And then you have the Celtics. They're on the brink of a championship run. They could win the Larry O.B. this season. Let's go Heat tonight, right? Heat in 7. But I think this really feels like a distraction. It almost feels like your kid is whining at a restaurant. You just shove an iPad in his face and he starts watching SpongeBob, right? It's a little bit of a distraction right there, because as excited as I am about Darvin Ham and getting our guy, I look back at this roster and look, you know a little about me at this point. You know I'm big on Godfather. I'm also obsessed with the Titanic, right? And Edward Smith, he was a good captain. And all I'm trying to say is I hope that Darvin Ham is proficient when it comes to rearranging furniture, because that is how this feels at this point. Because we can talk about how motivating he is and his schemes and a great assistant coaching staff, but if they keep Anthony Davis and he can't play more than half the games, and LeBron James can only play 56 games of the year, and Russell Westbrook continues to age like guacamole in the sun, then you're not going to have very different results, because as you mentioned, there's not the flexibility. They don't have the requisite flexibility to build depth in this roster. So that to me is my big concern. But what is your biggest concern about Darvin Ham aside just from the roster itself? Anything?
I mean, I get a little concerned with, like, how is Kurt Rambis going to handle him? Like, we know that Kurt Rambis has tried to insert himself into the coaching room at times, and like, how is that going to go? Like, what was that conversation like during the interview process? Because I would think that he had, I mean, it's his first job, so he probably took some sacrifices in those negotiations. But I would guess that the negotiations started at 3 years and he pushed his way to 4. But my biggest concern would be how Kurt Rambis is going to handle him and how that whole relationship is going to work, because for whatever reason, Kurt Rambis has the ear of Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka, so that could be very, very dangerous. But one quick question I have for you, just to get way too far ahead of ourselves: do you think Darvin Ham finishes this contract with the Lakers?
Look, the first time we had this conversation, I said that there's only been a couple coaches that have gone past 2 years, right? Or have gone close to finishing in their deals, and it's Pat Riley and Phil Jackson, because we know the MO of this franchise. They like to jump the gun on their head coaching. But also, I think that this hire alone shows they are learning. It shows they at least keep their ear to the streets when it comes to what are people saying about the Los Angeles Lakers. Because I don't think if you had this big uproar from guys like you and me, we know the influence we have on this organization, right?
Huge.
And guys like you and me, it's huge, right? Aren't screaming from the mountaintops to hire guys like Darvin Ham. I think they probably end up with a Mark Jackson type, right? Yeah. Someone like that, more of a name that they're comfortable with, a retread, a recycled hire. And as far as do I think that he'll finish out this deal, I do think they will, because I think they realize at this point that if they pull the rug on a guy like Darvin Ham that has so much respect around the league, I think that's going to hurt them in hiring future head coaches. And I think that they're going to continue to develop this poor reputation. And I also believe that, hey, there's going to be less pressure on him depending on what happens with LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the future. And I think that that's the way this game is going. You're going with young head coaches, new voices. And I wouldn't say he's necessarily an innovator. And that's kind of my big thing. He's not a guy that you're going to say, oh, get him the clipboard on an ATO, right?
He's not Sean McVay.
He's not a Sean McVay. Yeah. And you know what he kind of reminds me of? It almost is like in college football, right? In college football, you get these CEO type head coaches. And I'm not comparing him to Nick Saban at all, right? But what does Nick Saban, you don't see Nick Saban wanting even credit for what they do offensively, right? He just wants to win. I think Darvin Ham, he wants to establish a winning culture. And just look what he did in Milwaukee. And also, how about this? To me, you just mentioned, do I think he'll finish the contract? Well, how about this? What if in a few years, Giannis Antetokounmpo wants to come to the Lakers, right? And you use Darvin Ham as a little chip there saying, come play for your guy in Los Angeles. I know it's very small, and I know we're looking way ahead, but to me, that would be one reason why you keep Darvin Ham. But yeah, you would hate to see it, but at the end of the day, if he bombs, right, if this team misses the playoffs next year, of course, they're going to give him a second year. But, if he bombs, you never know, right? I mean, that is what this team does, because they back themselves into these corners where the only move they can make is to fire the head coach, right? So I think that's the big thing. But I'm going to ask you this too. Grade the hire of Darvin Ham A through F, and you can use plus minuses.
I'm going to go A for Giannis Antetokounmpo, because Giannis came out and said about damn time when he heard the news that Darvin Ham got hired. And look, Giannis and LeBron are two different superstars. I understand that. But if you've watched Giannis Antetokounmpo play in these NBA playoffs, if he approves of Darvin Ham, then that is good enough for me. That guy is, for my money right now, the best player in the NBA. So that endorsement means a lot in my book. And so that's why I give it an A2. Also, like we talked about, wasn't Stotts, wasn't Atkinson, wasn't Mark Jackson. They actually went outside the box. They didn't lowball him on the contract, and they're letting him pick his assistant. So for all of those reasons, I'm giving them an A.
I like it. Give him an A. In me, my grade, I have no beef with Ham. You know that. But I'm going to give it a B+. A B+, because to me, an A would have been my boy, Nick Nurse, okay? The guy has his own logo and sells his own hats, okay? That would be my A hire, because he's more of a proven winner. And at the end of the day, he has to prove that he can win as a head man in the NBA. But what I've been telling my friends the last few days is, hey, this guy, he understands the modern NBA. He was instrumental in the Bucks championship run just a few years ago, and he was a part of a team that took Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton, and Giannis Antetokounmpo and helped lead them to a 60-win season, right? So this is a guy that understands the game. He's more than ready. He's more than qualified, and I think that, yes, like I said, the roster is flawed, but it is a start. And I think that, look, a bought-in Russell Westbrook after a season where he's had to get booed by his own fans. And look, Russell Westbrook was a 3-star recruit that didn't get a scholarship to UCLA until Jordan Farmar went pro. Okay, he's defied the odds just like Darvin Ham. So maybe a spark for Russ could do well. And I think that there's a chance that he could provide some value under him. So I like the new voice and I like the hire. But Eric, as always, we appreciate your insight, your expertise. Get the lowdown on the Lake Show from Yulo. And Eric, you want to give me your handle?
That's at EEULAU, and you can check out all of our incredible articles and coverage at alllakers.com.
So go check him out, guys. You're not doing this Laker fandom thing right unless you're reading Eric Yulo. But let us know down below in the comment section. Do you like the hiring of Darvin Ham? Give you all your takes, all your thoughts on the Lakers hiring Darvin Ham as their new head coach, and grade it too. We gave you our grades. Yulo gave him an A. I gave him a B+, but we want your grades down below. And also, for all latest Lakers news and rumors all off season long, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And if you really want to support the channel, smash that like button. And as always, go Lakers.